I turned and headed toward the bedroom, grabbing a suitcase from the closet. When I came back, I handed it to her. "What's this?" she asked, eyeing the suitcase as if it might attack her. "It's your cue to leave," I replied, keeping it simple. "Hi, I'm Mia, and I'm about to marry Ethan. Or at least, that's what I thought. Right now, I'm sitting on the couch with my arms crossed, staring at the seriously intense expression on his face. He's pacing back and forth like he's about to give a TED talk, which, trust me, is not how I pictured tonight. "So," Ethan says, stopping in front of me, as if he's rehearsed this. "I've been thinking about how we should manage finances after the wedding. Here's the thing. I already know where this is headed." Ethan's been obsessed lately with partnership, equality, and shared responsibilities. It sounds great in theory, but come on, aren't we already a team? Isn't that what love is about? "Okay," I respond slowly, raising an eyebrow. "What's on your mind?" He clears his throat, as if he's nervous. Ethan nervous. That's a first. "I think it's important for us to start our marriage on equal footing, financially. So I've been looking into a prenuptial agreement." I blink in disbelief. "A prenuptial agreement?" I ask, my voice sharper than I meant it to be. "It's not about distrust," he says quickly, raising his hands as though calming a wild animal. "It's about fairness. You've always said you believe in equality, right? This is just putting that belief into practice. And there it is, the equality card." Ethan loves pulling that out like it's a winning move, but it feels so cold, like he's turning our relationship into a business deal. "Fair," I repeat, now standing up and pacing. "You think it's fair to plan for our marriage to fail before it even starts? What kind of message does that send?" "It's not about planning for failure," he says, his voice even and annoyingly calm. "It's about being realistic, protecting both of us." "Protecting us from what, Ethan? From each other? Do you even hear yourself right now?" I shake my head, frustration bubbling up. "This isn't about love. It's about practicality. Look, I've worked hard for what I have, and I know you have too. This is just a way to make sure we're both covered, no matter what happens." His words hit like a slap I didn't see coming. "You think I'd try to take advantage of you?" I ask, my voice shaking. "Of course not," he says, stepping closer, but I take a step back. "This isn't about mistrust. It's about being smart." I shake my head, tears welling in my eyes. "I thought we were building a life together, not negotiating a contract." A long, uncomfortable silence hangs between us. I can feel his eyes on me, but I can't bring myself to look at him. I thought Ethan understood me, understood us, but now I'm not so sure. Finally, I take a deep breath. "You know what? I need some air." I grab my coat and head for the door, leaving Ethan standing there looking like he has no idea what just happened. Honestly, neither do I. I stop at the corner cafe, the place we used to go when we first started dating. I order a coffee, even though it's late, and sink into one of the mismatched chairs by the window. I watch people pass by, their faces glowing in the warm light of the street lamps. Couples holding hands, laughing, living in the moment. That's what I want for us, not this business arrangement. The cafe hums with quiet chatter and the clinking of cups. But I feel like I'm in my own little world, trying to figure out what all of this means. All I know is that tonight didn't go how I imagined, and I have no idea where we go from here. Hey, this is Ethan. The days after that argument felt like walking on broken glass. Every word between us seemed sharp, ready to cut. I tried to act normal, thinking maybe if I gave Mia space, she'd calm down. But it wasn't just space she wanted. It was answers. Answers I wasn't sure how to give without making things worse. One evening, I came home to find her sitting in the dim light of the living room. She was scrolling through her phone, but her face had that distant look, as if she was deep in thought. I cleared my throat. Hey, how was your day? She glanced up, her eyes red, and said flatly, fine, then went back to her phone. Are you still upset? I asked. Even though I already knew the answer, she set her phone down and looked at me. Her expression a mix of hurt and frustration. You think I'm overreacting, don't you? No, that's not it, I began, taking a breath. I just want to understand how you're feeling. How I'm feeling, she repeated, her voice rising. I'm feeling like the person who's supposed to love me unconditionally doesn't trust me enough to share a life without a legal contract as a safety net. It's not about me, I said, trying to stay calm. It's about being responsible, not about mistrust. I love you. That doesn't change, but it does, she said, her voice cracking. It changes everything. You're putting a price tag on our love. I wanted to argue, to explain again, that it wasn't about love or money. But the tears welling up in her eyes stopped me. Instead, I just said quietly, I'm sorry you feel that way. The silence that followed was suffocating. She stood up suddenly, grabbed her phone and said, I need some air, before walking out without another word. I sat there, staring at the door, wondering if this was the beginning of the end. In the following days, the distance between us only grew. Mia barely spoke to me, and when she did, her words were curt, almost rehearsed. I overheard her on the phone with her friends one evening. He's making it seem like I don't contribute anything, she said, her tone sharp. I stood frozen in the kitchen, unsure if I should make myself known. Who does that? She continued, incredulous. It's like he thinks I need to prove my worth to him before we even start our life together. That's dumb. I backed away quietly, retreating to the bedroom. I didn't want to hear more, even though I knew it was how she felt. But the more I thought about it, the more I started noticing patterns I had ignored before. Mia always talked passionately about equality, about relationships being partnerships, about everything being 50-50. I admired that about her, but now I realized that our dynamic didn't always reflect those words. I paid most of the bills. I handled the big responsibilities, the rent and the car, the groceries, while she used her income for extras. I didn't mind. I'd always been happy to provide for us. But now I couldn't shake the feeling that her version of equality was selective. It wasn't just about money either. At home, she expected me to handle the practical and stressful stuff, while she spent hours at activism events and posting on social media about feminism and empowerment. It all fell apart at Rachel's dinner party. I had been looking forward to it. A chance to relax, to catch up. We were all sitting around the dining table laughing and sharing stories when Rachel suddenly introduced the topic of financial independence. It's so important, she said, swirling her wineglass. Every woman should have her own money, her own safety net. I agreed wholeheartedly. Definitely. Financial independence isn't just about money, it's about freedom, security, and equality in a relationship, I said. The room nodded in agreement, and for a brief moment, I felt like myself again, confident, passionate, and in control. But then Ethan, who had been quiet all evening, decided to speak up. "It's funny you say that," he said, his voice calm but pointed. "Considering how upset you were when I suggested we split finances equally." The words hit me like a slap. My heart raced as the room went silent, all eyes turning toward me. I forced a smile, hoping to ease the tension. "That's completely different," I said, my voice more forceful than I intended. "Oh, really? How is it different?" he asked, leaning back in his chair, his tone cool and challenging. "We're supposed to practice what we preach, right?" The embarrassment burned in my chest. Everyone was staring. Rachel, her husband, the couple beside them, and I felt exposed. It was as though Ethan had torn the curtain away and revealed something I wasn't sure I even believed anymore. I couldn't take it. I grabbed my purse and stood up abruptly. "Excuse me," I muttered, barely holding back tears as I stormed out of the room. The drive home was silent, but the air between us was thick with unspoken frustration. I could feel Ethan's anger radiating off him, and I was too furious to say anything. As soon as we entered the house, everything exploded. "What the hell was that?" I shouted, spinning around to face him. He closed the door behind him, his expression unreadable. "What was that?" he asked. What was that, Mia?" "That was me calling you out on your hypocrisy," he shot back. "Hypocrisy?" I repeated, my voice rising. "You humiliated me in front of my friends. Do you have any idea how that felt? Do you even understand how I've been feeling these past few weeks?" He fired back. "You keep preaching about equality and fairness, but when it comes to us, to our relationship, you refuse to even consider it. That's not fair," I snapped. "I've worked just as hard as you in this relationship." He bitterly laughed. "Really? Because from where I'm standing, I've been the one paying the bills, planning our future." "Stop right there," I interrupted, my hands trembling. "Don't you dare belittle what I bring to this relationship. Just because I don't make as much money as you doesn't mean I'm not contributing." "I'm not belittling you, Mia," he said, his voice softening slightly. "I'm asking you to be honest with yourself and with me. Do you really believe in equality? Or is it just something you say to look good?" The question struck harder than I expected. I opened my mouth to respond, but the words didn't come. "Exactly," he said, shaking his head. "You don't even know, do you?" I felt the tears welling up again, but this time they were tears of frustration, not sadness. "You don't understand, Ethan. You've never had to fight to prove your worth, to show that you belong. For you, equality is just a set of numbers on a spreadsheet. For me, it's survival." "Survival?" he repeated, his eyebrows furrowed. "Mia, we're not living in some dystopian world. I'm not trying to oppress you. I'm trying to build something real with you. But I can't do that if you're not willing to meet me halfway." "Meet you halfway?" I threw my hands up. "You're the one who dropped this prenuptial nonsense on me like it was a bombshell. Did you even stop to think how that would make me feel?" "Yes," he answered simply. "I thought about it a lot. And you know what I realized? Love isn't enough. Trust isn't enough. We need to be practical, Mia. We need to be partners." I stared at him, my chest tightening with anger and confusion. How did we get here? How did the man I love become so cold? That night, I slept on the couch, staring at the ceiling, replaying every word Mia had thrown at me. Survival, oppression. Was she even listening to herself? By morning, I'd reached my limit. For weeks, I'd been trying to find a way forward, but it felt like talking to a wall. Last night wasn't just another argument. It was a line in the sand. I found her in the kitchen scrolling through her phone with a coffee in hand, acting like nothing had happened. Typical. She had a knack for brushing things under the rug, but not this time. "We need to talk," I said, setting my coffee down on the counter. She sighed, not even looking up. "Ethan, can we not do this again? I'm exhausted." I crossed my arms and stared her down. "Oh, I'm sorry. Didn't mean to inconvenience you with my exhaustion over being treated like a walking wallet." Her head snapped up, her eyes narrowing. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," I said, my voice steady but firm. "You've spent weeks making me out to be the bad guy for asking you to pull your weight. You've called me controlling, untrusting, even cold. But tell me something, Mia. What exactly do you bring to the table, apart from yourself?" She blinked, caught off guard. "What kind of question is that? I bring plenty." "Really?" I challenged. "Name one thing." "Because from where I'm standing, I've been the one paying the bills, planning our future, supporting us. You're living off my dreams, even funding your activism while you play the feminist hero. Meanwhile, you can't handle a basic conversation about fairness without turning it into an attack on me." "That's not right," she shot back, her voice rising. "I've contributed emotionally, morally," she began, but I interrupted, laughing bitterly. "Mia, don't insult me. You've spent more time talking about equality than actually practicing it. Do you even hear yourself? You love to tell the world about empowering women, but when it comes to us, you're perfectly fine relying on me for everything. How is that equality?" Her face turned red, but she didn't respond. "I'll tell you why," I continued. "Because it's not about equality for you, it's about appearances. You want to look like the hero for women's rights, but you've turned me into your safety net. You don't want a partner, you want a provider." "That's not true!" she yelled, slamming her coffee cup onto the counter. "Isn't it?" I shot back. "Then prove me wrong. Tell me one thing you've done in this relationship that doesn't rely on me. Go ahead, Mia. I'm listening." The silence was deafening. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Her hands balled into fists by her sides. "I love you, Mia," I said finally, my voice softer. "I loved you so much that I was willing to overlook all of this because I thought we were building something real. That's why I brought up the prenup. Not to hurt you, but to wake you up, to make you realize that love isn't about one person carrying all the weight while the other coasts." Her lip quivered, but the anger in her eyes didn't fade. "You're twisting this. You're just trying to make me feel small, so you can feel superior." I shook my head, disappointed, but not surprised. "No, Mia, I was trying to save us. But if you can't even admit there's a problem, then there's nothing left to save." Her eyes narrowed. "So that's it? You're just giving up?" "I'm not giving up," I replied firmly. "I'm letting go, because I can't keep fighting for a relationship where I'm the only one showing up." I turned and walked toward the bedroom, grabbing a suitcase from the closet. When I returned, I handed it to her. "What's this?" she asked, staring at the suitcase as if it might bite her. "It's your cue to leave," I said simply. "Take your things and go, I'll give you until the end of the day to pack. After that, I'll change the locks." Her face twisted in disbelief. "You're kicking me out? Are you serious?" "Dead serious," I said, my voice cold now. "You want independence so badly. Here's your chance to prove you can handle it." For a moment, I thought she might apologize, might finally see reason. But instead, she scoffed, grabbed the suitcase, and stormed toward the door. "You'll regret this, Ethan," she hissed as she stepped out. I watched her leave, feeling a strange mixture of relief and sadness. I had loved her, truly, deeply. But sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes you have to let go of the person you thought they could be and accept who they really are. As the door slammed shut behind her, I finally felt the weight lift off my shoulders. It was over, and for the first time in weeks, I felt free. It was a random Saturday at the grocery store when I saw him. 8 long years since Ethan and I had gone our separate ways. Yet, the moment I spotted him in the produce aisle, my heart did that same familiar flip. He hadn't seen me yet, but there he was, calm, composed, and frustratingly put together. He was leaning casually on the cart, inspecting a bunch of bananas like he had all the time in the world. His wife, I assumed, stood beside him, her figure sleek and graceful even in casual clothes. She was effortlessly beautiful, with sharp cheekbones, glowing skin, and an air of quiet confidence. 2 kids hovered around them, one tugging at her hand, while the other tried to sneak a candy bar into the cart. They looked happy. I froze, gripping the handle of my cart. I should have looked away, pretended I hadn't noticed him. But I couldn't look away. This was the life I could have had. Mommy, can we get this?" My son tugged at my shirt, holding up a box of cereal. His small voice snapped me back to reality. I looked down at him, feeling a mix of love and regret. I smiled weakly, brushing a strand of hair from his face. "Not today, sweetheart." Before I could gather my thoughts, Ethan's gaze met mine. For a brief second, I saw a flash of recognition in his eyes. Then, just as quickly, he nodded, barely a dip of his head, and turned away. That was it. No smile, no attempt at conversation, just a simple nod. Honestly, it hurt. I pushed my cart forward, trying to avoid staying too close to him or his family. But as I moved through the aisles, my mind wandered back to the years after Ethan. I had tried so hard to find my place. There were 2 relationships. One with a charming artist who couldn't commit to anything lasting, and another with a high-paying consultant who turned out to be a serial cheater. When both of those fell apart, I met Greg. Greg was nice, steady. He was a 43-year-old single dad of 3 who had experienced his own heartbreak. He wanted stability, and so did I. We married within a year. Now I was a stay-at-home mom, raising my son while trying to keep up with the whirlwind of Greg's 3 teenagers. Life was fine, comfortable even. But there was no denying how far I had fallen from the passionate, idealistic woman I used to be. The woman who had been so sure she could have it all, without compromise. I glanced at my reflection in the freezer door. My once vibrant hair was tied back in a messy ponytail. My face looked tired, worn from late-night feedings and school drop-offs. The faint lines around my eyes told a story I didn't want to admit to myself. And Ethan? He had moved on, thrived even. The prenup that had caused a rift between us all those years ago now seemed so insignificant. Back then, it had felt like a betrayal, like he was turning our relationship into a business transaction. But now I understood it for what it truly was. A practical decision from a man who had wanted a partnership, not a one-sided arrangement. He had loved me, I knew that. And I had loved him too, in my own way. But pride had stood in the way. My pride. My stubborn refusal to compromise, to meet him halfway. Would things have been different if I'd signed the prenup? The thought lingered, heavy and unshakable. If I had swallowed my pride and agreed to his terms, would I have been the one standing beside him today, laughing with him, raising those beautiful kids together? As I walked toward the checkout, I couldn't help but glance back one last time. Ethan and his family were gone. Their cart was nowhere in sight. Just like him, they had moved on. And me. I had to live with the choices I'd made, the life I had settled for, and the quiet voice in my head that whispered about what could have been.